Good evening and welcome to APTN National News. I'm Daryl Stranger. As COVID-19 cases continue to surge across the country, more provinces are breaking records this week. Nearly 15,000 COVID cases were reported yesterday. That's the highest daily case count yet in Canada. Today, Quebec is reporting 9,397 cases, shattering records there. And Nova Scotia reported 689 cases today, breaking the daily case count for the 8th straight day. British Columbia had more than 1,400 cases yesterday, a new daily record. And as people head into the holidays in Newfoundland and Labrador, the region has moved to Alert Level 3. Capacity in bars, movie theaters, bingo halls, and performance venues will drop 50% as they reported 60 new cases yesterday, the highest since mid-February. The NHL has already shut down the hockey season for now, but Olympic athletes are now being advised to get their third booster shot ahead of the Games. We'll certainly have to keep an eye on those numbers. And today, courts approved an $8 billion clean drinking water deal between the federal government and First Nations. The settlement compensates individuals deprived of clean drinking water to the tune of $1.5 billion. $400 million will go towards creating an economic and cultural restoration fund, and $6 billion will support reliable access to safe drinking water on reserves. Ottawa also renewed its commitment to lifting all long-term water advisories. Now, currently, Indigenous Services website lists 38 advisories remaining in 29 communities. And we want to hear what you think about the water settlement being approved. Here's how to continue the conversation. Send your emails to news@aptn.ca or leave a comment on aptnnews.ca. You can also find us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok. Follow APTN News to see the conversation and see our latest stories. From the tragic discovery of children found buried on residential schools to devastating floods and mudslides, BC has had quite a 2021. APTN's Tina House takes us back on the year that was.
It was in late May that the devastating news of children being found in shallow, unmarked graves shocked the world. The Kamloops Indian Residential School was first established in 1890, and thousands of kids from across BC were sent here. For years, former students told horrific stories about this residential school. Stories of sexual and physical abuse from nuns, priests, and workers, and even stories about how kids just completely disappeared. Now, with the 215 kids that were discovered in a mass unmarked grave, the memorial outside the school is growing by the minute. Richard Perrin wanted to come and pay his respects to the community after hearing it on the radio.
We had been in Germany just before COVID, a year ago, October or something. We went to Dachau, and I got that same empty kind of feeling when knowing what happened here.
Cookbee Roseanne Casimir says there is still a lot of work to do in getting to the truth.
We know that through a lot of the stories from our ancestors and that have attended the residential school, that there's a lot of unanswered questions.
It's called an atmospheric river.
2021 was also the year that the term atmospheric river became a reality for those living on the south coast of BC. From the Malahat Highway on Vancouver Island, with newly formed waterfalls, to the Othello Tunnel, where the water is so intense, there are fears this bridge might get washed away. Then there's the Coquihalla Highway, which is the main artery to connect Vancouver to the rest of Canada, that is completely washed away in some sections. And then there is Merritt.
City of Merritt, underwater.
The entire city has been evacuated with no word when they can return home.
We are seeing significant rain-induced incidents such as mudslides and flooding in the southwest and central regions of the province.
With the Canadian government sending 500 soldiers to flood-ravaged BC, this platoon was sent to help sandbag around these homes to prevent more water damage. This cell phone footage shows the extent of the flooding that engulfed this community. At some points, it was waist-deep high.
Our backyards were flooded, and we didn't have hardly any support. It was very scary and hard and stressful.
And going from bad to worse, just outside of Abbotsford, BC, in an area called Sumas Prairie, the floodwaters are rising. The Nooksack River in the United States has now gone over the border and is now flowing into that area.
I see the devastation caused to our friends and neighbors, their livelihood, and actually, you know, some people say the farmers in these areas, that's the bread and butter that people rely on. It's devastation that's hard to look at.
An average of 6 people are dying from the toxic drug supply in British Columbia, according to BC's chief coroner.
In October 2021, 201 people died as a result of drug toxicity, bringing the total number of deaths in the first 10 months of 2021 to 1,782. The 201 deaths due to drug toxicity in October represent the largest loss of life experienced in a single month in the toxic drug crisis.
Trey, what's the situation on the streets right now?
The toxic drugs continue. It's people dying left and right, and lots of overdoses.
You mentioned benzodiazepine being mixed in with the drugs now, and naloxone has no effect on that. How has that strained your services here?
It's strained our services immensely. Like, it turns us into a daycare, essentially. Like, we reverse the fentanyl overdose, but we've got like 5 or 6 people laid out on mats. So it slows down the amount of people that we can see within our indoor site, and it's strained BC ambulatory services. It's strained the hospital. It's really upsetting and frustrating at the same time.
And just like everywhere else, BC is still dealing with the ongoing pandemic. New variants of the coronavirus are also emerging, with studies showing that they are more contagious and possibly deadlier than the original virus. The lockdown also meant countless businesses were shut down, millions of people have lost their jobs, and many have struggled with their mental health from the isolation in quarantine.
We have to reach a point where we're in control of the virus. The virus is not in control of us.
Robert Clifton was one of those who started to not feel well last September. Once a very gregarious and social person who loved to entertain friends and family before the pandemic, he says despite his best efforts to stay safe, he also contracted COVID-19.
I was completely bedridden for actually 20 days. The typical isolation period is 10 days. And they kept me in isolation for 20 days because my symptoms were not rectifying.
There's no question that the year 2021 has been a challenging time for many, but we wanted to leave you with this heartwarming story of community members giving back to others. It's a busy day for the Aboriginal Policing Society and the Aboriginal Front Door Society as they pick up food hampers to be delivered to some families in need in Vancouver.
Fresh fruit, fresh vegetables, cookies, treats, everything you need for Christmas dinner.
And with the car fully loaded, it was time to deliver to Charlie Morrison. He's the first recipient of the day. He's a residential school survivor and says he's so appreciative of the help.
Merry Christmas, and thank you people for helping us out, downtown east side people. It's a big help for us. Thank you, Tina. Thank you, guys.
Merry Christmas.
For Lily Babinski, she says this is exactly what the holidays are all about, to give back to others.
I'm happy to help the community and everybody because I remember what it was like to struggle. And when people helped me, I really appreciated it.
On behalf of everyone at APTN's Vancouver Bureau, we want to wish you a safe and happy holiday season.
All right, we need to take a short break, but still to come, we'll take a look back at some of Ottawa's top stories from the past year. Welcome back to APTN National News. As the year comes to close, there were some big stories out of our Ottawa Bureau to look back on. Earlier this week, I spoke with Brett Forster, the host of Nation to Nation. So, Brett, as you reflect on the past year, which stories made the biggest headlines for you?
Well, there's so many to choose from, Daryl, but I think for me, the top story was a months-long investigation that undertook into systemic racism within the federal bureaucracy, in particular the Indigenous serving departments. Many months ago, we got a tip about that and obtained some internal documentation, and what followed or what resulted was a story called Death by a Thousand Cuts, which kind of detailed some of the experiences of Indigenous bureaucrats with systemic racism. And one of the sources in that story is now a lead plaintiff in a class action lawsuit that is currently before the federal court. So that was a big one. A couple other ones that really stood out, at least from here in Ottawa, was the ongoing saga with respect to First Nations child welfare litigation. There were several landmark rulings, and we've just found out at the end of the year that the government is going to earmark $40 billion to try and resolve this litigation once and for all. For me, another story that stood out was the year-long dispute at 1492 Landback Lane. It was very difficult to get any sort of transparency out of government and police on that issue. So using the access to information system, I was able to learn throughout the year that the provincial police spent more than $16 million on that. Operation that CSIS, the country's top spy agency, kept tabs on it, and that the government actually believes a lawsuit based on those land claims launched by the elected council poses quite a quote-unquote high risk for the Crown and will result in a substantial damage award.
Plenty of great stories indeed, and you've had some great guests as well on Nation to Nation since you took over mid-year. What were some of your favorite moments?
Well, we've had quite a few real powerful politicians on the show, and it's always enjoyable to interview them. The first episode, we had Jody Wilson-Raybould on to talk about her new book. Since then, we've had several ministers, including Environment Minister Stephen Guilbeault, Ms. Wilson-Raybould's successor, Justice Minister David Lametti, and most recently, Minister of Crown Indigenous Relations Mark Miller. For me, a big moment that stood out, however, was an interview with Del Riley, the former president of the National Indian Brotherhood in 1982. He helmed the organization in the constitutional talks in the 80s and later switched it over from the Brotherhood to the organization we know today, the AFN. He joined me to talk about two searches for unmarked graves currently unfolding at the country's two oldest residential schools, the Mohawk Institute and the Mount Elgin Institute in southern Ontario.
Now, Brett, what are the big moves you will be watching for in Ottawa in this new year?
Well, we'll certainly be watching to see how the House of Commons moves along in a minority government. Will there be an election? How long will it last? Are some big questions that I think linger. What's next for the pandemic? When will we come out of it? But for us, I think one of the big issues is going to be watching how the government decides to implement its UNDRIP law, the former Bill C-15. This was a contentious bill. Some supported it, others didn't, and it will be interesting to watch what they do. They have to harmonize federal laws with the Declaration, which means, at least logically, repealing and replacing the Indian Act. When I spoke to Mark Miller a few weeks ago, he said there were hundreds and hundreds of laws that need to be amended and looked at to comply with this statute. So what will that look like moving forward? I'll certainly be watching.
And Brett, any sneak peeks to guests you're going to have on the show in the new year?
Well, I don't want to give away too much, but I will say in the new year you can look for our sit-down with the Governor-General of Canada, Mary Simon. Before the holidays, we traveled over to Rideau Hall to record that, and it will air sometime in the new year.
All right, well, that's certainly one to watch. Brett, always appreciated, and beautiful Christmas tree.
Thank you.
We need to step aside for one more break, but still to come, a Cree artist in Edmonton has painted over 150 hockey sticks. We'll tell you why next. Welcome back to APTN National News. A Cree artist in Edmonton has painted over 150 hockey sticks for the upcoming World Junior Hockey Championships. They will be given to MVPs as gifts. APTN's Chris Stewart has more.
Jason Carter was asked by Hockey Canada to create a unique gift to be given to the best players on each team after each game for the upcoming World Hockey Junior Championships, which begin Boxing Day in Edmonton and Red Deer. He agreed to paint 155 hockey sticks. When the sticks arrived, he had more work to do than he thought.
It was really just figuring out how to paint on the sticks because they arrived fully varnished. So I had to remove all of this varnish off of this whole stick here, and then clear coat it, protect it so that I could paint on it, and then paint multiple coats of blue. So just to get that to that point took me a week and a half, 2 weeks of just managing 155 sticks.
Carter chose to paint a bear under the northern lights with the mountains in the background.
They left it up to me as to what I wanted these sticks to look like. And I'm totally inspired by the bear, and I'm inspired by color and the beautiful landscapes that we have here in Alberta. So it really kind of happened pretty organically. I'm always attracted to the bear and what the bear means, to me as an Indigenous man, but also to everybody, and what the strength of the bear, the protectiveness, the fortitude.
These sticks given to players and dignitaries will be taken all over the world.
It's pretty cool to be able to know that they're going to be able to take a piece of Canada home with them, created by an Indigenous artist that, is completely unique. I think this is the first time Hockey Canada has ever done anything like this. So for them, it's going to be something unique, not the usual gift. So I think in that sense, it'll stand out as well. So, it's pretty exciting for me as a visual artist to be able to create something that is going to have that kind of meaning for these, athletes.
Team Canada is favored to win the championships. Chris Stewart, APTN National News, Edmonton.
Every year, a Nisga'a community decorates their suspension bridge with Christmas lights for the holidays. They honor their lost loved ones with memorial photos on the bridge. Thanks to support from all across BC, organizers say this year was their biggest event to date. APTN's Lee Wilson has that story.
Since 2013, the Nisga'a village, Gitlin Silk, lights up their suspension bridge. Lena Griffin, one of the organizers, shares the importance of the yearly event known as Light Up Lisims.
Light Up Lisims behind us is a beautiful tribute to remember loved ones who have passed on. And during the holiday season, it's difficult for us all who have lost someone. So the lights are a way to remind us that our loved ones are here with us.
The bridge is covered with lights and hundreds of photos of loved ones who have passed away. Tanya Azak has been volunteering since the start. She says they wanted to lift spirits after a death in the community.
We wanted to do something special for the community, as that year we had had a loss in our community. So. And it was very heavy, so we wanted to do something to lighten up the mood, get into the Christmas spirit, support our loved ones and our families and friends in the community.
Connie Azak grew up in the community, and when she heard of the plans, she wanted to be part of bringing everybody together.
It's so pure in thought and feeling, and it's selfless, and it's a beautiful way to bring our people together in the darkest times. And especially now.
Azak is a researcher and says this bridge was built in 1969. For 400 years, a suspension bridge was the only way you can get access to the Nisga'a village Gitlin Silk other than boat. There is now a modern bridge where you could drive over the Nass River to the Nisga'a village. This year, the Light Up Lisims event was the group's biggest one to date.
This year was our biggest event ever. We had at least 100 people here, and the Gitwin Salvation Army had their food truck, and they had hot food and hot chocolate, and we had the elders do the plug-in, and an elder do a story about the bridge.
Light Up Lisims says the community page has grown to 1,700 members. Family members submit photos, then volunteers print, laminate, and place the photos on the bridge. Griffin says there are photos of lost loved ones from all 4 Nisga'a villages, but they have had submissions from all around British Columbia. There are also 4 pictures of pets memorialized on the bridge. Donations and community support allow Light Up Lisims to continue to grow. Words of encouragement and social media posts of families on the bridge get posted online to the group's community page. Organizers are working towards having Light Up Lisims becoming an official organization to keep the community event going for years to come.
To sit and reflect and remember and to just feel the Christmas spirit and to feel the love and to feel the support. So I think it's very important that it continues, whether it's us or our children.
Lee Wilson, APTN National News, Gitlin Silk.
Tom Jackson's famous Huron Carol is going virtual this year. The Huron Carol usually tours around this time of year. Raising funds for food banks across the country, entertainer Tom Jackson founded the concert series in 1987. Now people can see the concert online from Christmas Eve to Boxing Day at www.huroncarol.ca. All donations will go to flood recovery in British Columbia. All right, that's all we have for you tonight. We leave you with a beautiful array of lights from Vancouver. I'm Daryl Stranger. Thank you for joining us and have a great night.